This video is a personalized response to Gaming in the Quarantine Years by Chris Franklin. He runs a YouTube channel named Errant Signal that focuses on reviewing games that he finds interesting and tasteful. In some respects, I aim to respond to some of the direct points of the aforementioned video, many of which I feel Chris has eloquently echoed throughout his proclaimed self-indulgence. I also want to add some extension to the video and describe a little further about my own circumstances regarding writer's block, loss of motivation, and simply the unwillingness to engage. This video is going to be a little serious, but hopefully it doesn't go too far off the deep end. If you don't think you can handle a video like this at the moment, I urge you to come back at a time that's best healthy for you. If you'd like to have the context of what I'm discussing in this video, feel free to watch Chris's video as it is much lighter in tone. This video is ultimately a shot in the dark at a sub-series which I hope to do here on my second channel just to produce videos on a more consistent basis. There were a lot of ideas and writing pieces flowing through me during the entirety of 2020, but now that 2021 has come, I am utterly drained of much of my creative energy. Lots of empty promises later, and here I am making something quick and easy to get out there. Truth is, the pandemic has been a total roller coaster for me since it began, and many of my tribulations aren't even a direct result of the pandemic. For a little while now, I was utterly frustrated with why I felt completely unproductive and unmotivated to get anything done. Yet I couldn't find words for what might be causing my frustrations, just that it was happening to me. An invisible foe that dragged you down through sheer idea alone. That's why when I watched Chris's video, I was absolutely touched by what he had to say on the matter. The pandemic has been difficult for everyone on the planet. If not for a personal reason, then simply through knowing that the rest of the world is suffering on a tremendous scale. People have been going homeless, many have died because of the COVID-19 virus, the economy is taking, and as individuals, we feel entirely powerless against the system. We can't get out of this situation no matter how badly we want to right now. It seems like things just need to run their course. Whether or not you agree with it, many people are making an active effort to restore the world to how it was just before the pandemic, to meandering results. In a sense, everyone has found their own little pocket of depression among the pandemic, and those who aren't used to reveling in it are trying to break free. On the other side of the coin, I haven't actively partaken in the outside world for many years now. I've been inside playing video games, working, doing school, and writing video scripts and book manuscripts to little successive results. You could say that I have no reason to complain because I haven't been deeply impacted by the pandemic. However, this attempt to alienate each other because one party hasn't suffered nearly as much as the other is why many of us are in this predicament in the first place, isn't it?
And again, it feels profoundly stupid to complain about this in the face of 500,000 dead people and their grieving families, a pending eviction crisis, restaurants and theaters closing shop, and countless lives destroyed. Aw, did Chris have a sad and play video games in the worst pandemic in a century? It feels ridiculous to complain about, and I am acutely aware of that. But I also feel like acknowledging the very real harm that has occurred to others doesn't make the past year any less exhausting or bereft of the joys of life.
This has been a common pity argument for quite some time now. You haven't suffered nearly as bad as I have, so why are you complaining? To some fronts, it holds value. People ought to be grateful for what they have and the opportunities that await them. But many times, this argument is like someone begging to be pitied. What is a genuine concern for something one has found as off-putting or wrong in their existing environment is reduced down to, well, you're just looking for reasons to complain. Let's face it, I'm struggling much more than you are, therefore you should just shut your mouth. While I'm not verging on being homeless or finding myself short on cash and constantly under financial stress, I am creatively empty. And as someone who is passionately creative, to the point of being incredibly self-destructive, feeling creatively empty is akin to feeling dead. For the past few months, I've just been sitting around getting things done based on a status quo that I need to meet. No longer do I find myself expressing thoughts that I care deeply about or engaging in video games that have a profound impact on me. My personality has boiled down to clinginess, feeling incomplete as a person, and wanting to go to bed halfway through the day because of dopamine-deprived migraines. So let's take a step back here. I have to concede that internalized problems such as depression or anxiety or creative walls are inherently alienating. The simple fact is that depression isn't the norm for many folks around the world. In fact, it's actually a very recent issue for many teenagers and young adults today. Even more recent than that, however, is that the entire world is starting to feel the effects of depression. A deep feeling of utter helplessness combined with internalized sense of self-worth now seeps through the minds of common-day folks. If you're not at all emotionally impacted from the pandemic and you're managing to keep up with this video, I have to applaud you. It's deeply, embarrassing to talk about this sort of stuff. Chris even faults himself for making this video, cringe.
So this isn't going to be a normal episode. I concede up front that it's a little self-indulgent and overshare-y and obvious and wanky, and even a little, dare I say it, cringe?
People have become inherently unaccepting of people's emotions, upholding logic to be the end-all be-all of one's intelligent capabilities. To produce a work that is emotionally self-indulgent is to produce one that is cringe. I'm not particularly criticizing Chris for his hesitance to be emotionally forthcoming amidst a creative dry spell. I'm pointing out the pushing away of one's pure emotions, the human mind in its rawest form, capable of creating ultimate beauty and destruction. That feeling of empty static rapturing through the minds of those stuck inside because there's simply nothing to look forward to in the day anymore. For many people, their daily cycle has been broken at the core. This is where I think Chris has supreme emotional intelligence. Where I am quick to blame myself for my own shortcomings, Chris is able to relate his change in an attitude to the environment that he finds himself occupying on a daily basis.
But this is like a quarantine-induced depression? An inescapable malaise brought on by cabin fever? A crushing ennui from self-isolation? I don't know what to call it, but the pleasures and rewards of life have been stripped out while what remains is a gray paste, where endless work and household chores and boredom are punctuated with bouts of sleeping and eating soggy takeout in front of disposable media because that's all I have the energy to consume. And that's it. That's life now. That's every single day. It has been for a year.
See, I find myself in the same situation, just with different circumstances leading up to it. In August of 2020, I began working an IT job at my college. From someone who has had a little job experience and can also find joy in doing simple tasks on a repeating basis, my days at work were overall enjoyable. I mean, they were incredibly slow as most of the staff of my college had been sent home because of COVID, but that time was instead spent socializing with colleagues and being able to walk around a campus that I had never engaged with previously. It was simple, and in the mornings and afternoons I had about 30 minutes of driving to pump me up before work and to decompress after work. It wasn't until a short period after I had started the job when I was offered a new job working entirely from home and being paid about $14.50 an hour, a $2 raise from what I was getting. That sounds pretty great, right? I got a job in a new interesting field, got a pretty nice pay raise on top of being able to save money on gas, and didn't have to spend an extra hour in the car on the weekdays. After the first day that I started that job in October, I immediately felt the impact of my decision. What used to be ample time to socialize and engage in the school I was attending now became time to awkwardly sit at my desk and pick away at monotonous tasks. Gone was being able to turn around and have a conversation with someone. Now I was just watching low-effort YouTube videos to divide up my attention. After work, I just, continued sitting at the same desk that I was working at, except now I was working on school, playing video games, or working on a video that never came to fruition. It utterly felt like the days were just blending together. I wasn't talking to any of those people from the IT job anymore. I was basically cramped inside my house all day without any real feeling of work-life balance because all of what I was doing was just work. Even playing video games started to feel like a commitment that I just couldn't take on at the moment. And I still feel guilty for trying to start up a new title. That guilt, and feeling like I should be working hard to prepare myself for the future more than I already am, is all-encompassing. But that work is empty, meaningless, sitting around and slowly picking away at tasks that hold no true value to me. And so we arrive at this video, a concession, much like Chris's, that something has gone wrong and that if I work on acknowledging the problem, I can begin to fix it. While I've somewhat maintained my energy to continually play new, intriguing video games, I've also been largely consumed with playing the same titles over and over again. Recently, it's been Risk of Rain 2 for its simple gameplay appeal and easy-to-start multiplayer, Void Bastards for its simple collectathon appeal, as well as Overwatch because, just because it's something to play. Plus the titles that I've been playing are surface level and don't have anything interesting going on for them, or I can't find the energy in myself to dedicate meaningful time to them. Persona 5 Strikers was a really bad example of this, an overall mediocre title that went on for about 32 hours. Death Stranding had a terrible, self-indulgent story down to its very core, and the walking simulator mechanics weren't nearly as complex as I was led to believe. Omori came out on Christmas Day of 2020, and that game was great. However, I couldn't find myself hooked onto it enough to engage with its emotionally charged themes and do a second playthrough to get the full experience. Those are just a few of the games that I played recently and couldn't inspire myself to write anything about them, or I couldn't find the energy to really even care. And that's a missed opportunity that will never once return to me, a genuine piece of work created on my real fascinations on a certain game. See, there's a sort of trap when it comes to writing essays for video games. Going into a game and knowing that you want to write an essay on it ultimately leads the essay to failure. Instead of fully engaging with the gameplay experience, part of the mind is occupied on trying to construct a thesis for the essay that comes afterwards. The essay becomes contrived, and that relationship with its author persists deeply, even if the audience will never pick up on it. The culmination of these things have made the past few months feel empty, devoid of anything that has meaning, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of not being able to wholly engage with the things around me, not challenging myself in complex ways, only trying to hit a status quo so that my life can continue moving forwards. There were a lot of people in the comments section of Chris's video pointing out that he might be legitimately depressed as a result of the pandemic. It's easy to play this stuff off as just backseat therapy, but these thoughts are discomforting. In fact, if I were to be honest, they've been discomforting for many years now. It seems like only till recently has the world really caught on to the meaning of emotional intelligence and trying to take care of one's psyche. Psychology has always been that one science that no one really seemed to want to address, and newer generations are finally getting around to putting together the pieces. I believe there's a fair amount of holding back in Chris's video to give the piece more structure. And that isn't to imply there's something drastic going on behind the scenes. If anything, I'm holding back far more than what Chris certainly is. Chris's hesitance to really stick it to himself is perhaps why a lot of his viewers are raising these concerns to him. His failure to provide a black and white, I might actually be depressed guys, goes against the video's themes of acknowledging your struggles. Within the scope of the video, it makes sense why these details were left out. Chris is professional enough to understand that his YouTube channel isn't the appropriate place to rant about one's feelings. And I'm positive that Chris is capable of helping himself if he hasn't come to the realization that depression might actually be on the table. But for a lot of people, this video has certainly had a profound effect on those who identify with Chris's exact problem. What this video has done is simply lay down the foundation for which people can relate, without giving the phenomenon a proper name, which commenters have now deemed as depression. Gaming in the quarantine years has tapped into previously unfound value for the Errant Signal channel, where it's previously dabbled in expression of oneself, trying to pinpoint what an author stands for through their works, and how culture manifests itself through video games. Chris Franklin has inadvertently helped many people figure out that their same state of mind is not healthy. Errant Signal doesn't seem like a channel that's specifically built for other people, but instead is a thought space that Chris utilizes and constantly builds upon. Whether that be qualifying his opinions on game feel, admitting past mistakes and working to push past them, or even just forcing himself to go outside of his usual comfort zone. This video feels like it fits right in alongside his typical format, if not acting as a sort of filler episode. It's a precautionary tale as to how working in closed-off work environments can be. While many of us ultimately strive for the luxuries that are working from home, and hope to one day be rid of archaic office buildings and unstimulating work environments, many people aren't quite ready for the emotional and psychological ramifications that are to be had and are currently being had. This pandemic may ultimately change the future of how we work and how children attend schools, but at that same rate, we need to think through what we're giving up in the process. Necessary social outlets, and even just leaving the house on a daily basis, may be replaced with being cooped up inside one room all day, and that's not healthy. People today are already more closed off and self-isolating than previous generations, and that's a problem we don't even seem to be trying to solve. It's not really a question of when the world is going to go back to normal, it's a question of if it will. Are we going to go back to typical work environments, or will a lot of companies send their employees home permanently? Are many going to be okay with that, and is it going to cement this ongoing culture? There's a lot of questions to be asked, and I have the answers to none of them. I do know for a fact, though, that I can't keep sitting around forever. What has been large gaps in upload schedules has actually been me throwing out countless amounts of video ideas and half-finished projects because they simply don't fit my vision for how I should be talking about video games. And a lot of those ideas can still be valuable to someone even if they seem self-indulgent or overly critical. Gaming in the quarantine years is up there as one of the better Errant Signal episodes I've watched, and that only tells me that people will ultimately find their own value in one's work. The only way to assure that those taken away values will be positive is to simply put out quality work to begin with, and let everyone get their fill from there. While the pandemic isn't going to end for a while, and the world may never go back to the same way that it was previously, I'm calling it quits here. That may sound like an overly conclusive way to end a video on a topic that currently has the world in a rut, but I suddenly feel like I have a lot of work to do. Hopefully if I can just push myself to get out of this pit of despair, I can get back on track with trying to fulfill myself creatively. If you haven't gone and already watched Chris's video that I've been bouncing off of, I highly recommend you go and give it a thorough viewing. Chris is an intellectually honest reviewer who isn't afraid of molding his opinions and owning up to mistakes with time. That's something that I honestly think is really hard to find in the journalism review and video essay space, so I highly recommend his videos. My personal recommendation is his Blip series, which I think best shows off his ability to construct thoughtful feedback and engage his audience, especially with smaller indie titles that really need the attention. Give him a go, and thanks for watching.